I think we'll get started.
Maybe she put in a resolution after the fact.
That's fine.
Maybe.
Thanks, I'm gonna go through my stuff first.
Okay.
Thank you, Claire, so much.
The meeting is called to order, Southampton Town Planning Board, Thursday, May 25th, 2023. In the absence of the secretary, I'll call the roll. Member Fulham.
Present.
Member Neely.
Present.
Member Mutu.
Present.
Member Catalanato.
Present.
Secretary and the chair are absent. The vice chair is present. We have a quorum. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no minutes today. Anthony, are you going to start us off?
Sure.
Or tell us what's off? I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you, for my stuff, I think this is the right agenda. Numbers 5 and 6, Hampton Cove Estates and Remsenburg Marina.
Okay.
The first application is two-lot subdivision, Aaron Sachs. This is right on Lewis Road in East Quogue. It's the R20 zoning district. It's a two-lot subdivision with existing house. Get back to the plan. With a flag lot to the back. We did a pre-application on this some time ago. They finally got the health department approval. I think I have a checklist. I did do a checklist to make sure. It says here the health department's not received. We do in fact have that. And aside from a few minor things, the application I think is in order. It's pretty straightforward. So I was going to recommend deeming this application complete, and I was going to recommend waiving the hearing.
Yeah.
We didn't get any comments the first time around.
A 30-day written comment.
30-day written comment period.
Very good. Do we motion to that effect?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent. And Ketchaponik.
Ketchaponik,
Item two.
okay, so we're ultimately going to be coming back for this. We're going to deem this application incomplete today, and I spoke to Heather Wright, who's the attorney
Okay.
representing it, but, because we're gonna have a more meaningful discussion. This is a complicated project. So, ultimately, what we're looking at is a 10-lot subdivision. This is a property that's on Old Country Road in West Hampton. It's in the CR 200 zoning district.
What is the street
Is that-
directly east of? Is that Sophia's
the
Court?
Pines?
Yes, I believe that,
So-
that's,
Sophia?
Sophia Court?
Sophia, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
adjacent to that subdivision. The proposal here is for a 10-lot subdivision through a transfer of development rights from another property. That property sits along Sunrise Highway. I'm going to show you an overall map. It's a long, skinny piece, just over 30-something acres in the core preservation area of the Pine Barrens. It's hard to see, but the yellow. So this would be the sending site, and then the property down here would be the receiving site. The applicant would, like I said, we're going to deem the application incomplete because the question is the mechanism, right? Where the yield map, for example, is showing 1 acre lots. It's showing 9 1 acre lots, which I believe is the minimum lot size you need in order to do a TDR. But to get to that yield, they got to transfer in enough development rights to make up the deficiency from a 1 acre lot to the CR 200 that is required. And so we got to, I think we got to sit down with the applicant. I got to sit down with Dave Wilcox and sort of figure
I was
out
gonna say.
how much, exactly. So that's what Heather and I discussed yesterday briefly, and we're going to sit down with Janice as well. Ultimately, they're showing a 9-lot yield. They show a second plan showing 10 lots because under the Long Island Workforce Housing Act, you'd have to give it 10% for an affordable lot. And then they ultimately show a cluster plan clustering the lots with some open space along Old Country Road. At this point, we're going to have, I think, a meaningful discussion when I can prepare some, process for this. In the meantime, I think we would just deem it incomplete, and then we'll come back after I.
You could even do a work session on it.
We'll do a work session. I
Yeah.
think it'll be easier.
So our action then is to deem it incomplete.
Deem it
Do we have a motion?
Oh wait, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Just real quick, I think, for purposes of guidance, so.
You have to use the podium
I'll
and
come up,
just.
I'll come up.
Forgot.
and just identify
Yeah,
yourself.
Sure.
Thanks.
Heather Wright for the applicant, Ketchuponic LLC. Anthony and I did speak about this yesterday. I believe Sophia Court, that subdivision, was very similar to this one with the transfer of the development rights. So we should, I've already put in a FOIL. We should take a look at that subdivision to see how that transfer was applied, because I think it's the exact same thing here.
I believe the Sophia map just transferred in that, there was that one oversized large parcel off the cul-de-sac. And I think that's the only part. I seem to recall Sophia was just a standard, but it's been years.
Well, I think if we should take a look at it.
Yeah.
I spoke to the surveyor, David Fox, and he alerted me to the fact that Sophia might be something worth taking a look at as a comparable
Okay.
type of transfer. So we'll see what it, we'll see
Yeah,
what it
we'll get
shows.
this on for a work session.
That'd be great.
Very
Okay.
good. Do we have a
Thank you.
motion for incomplete? Motion by George,
Second?
second by Kate, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed, abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent. Anthony, are you going in order?
Yes,
917?
but before we do number 3, which is 917 West Main, which is completeness, if we go to number 20, let's do the secret first.
Which number is that?
I'm sorry, 20.
20.
So secret on the same 917 West Main.
This is the property that's identified as 1 Windermere Court in Remsenburg. The application is 917 West Main LLC. It's 1 Windermere Court in Remsenburg. This is the industrial subdivision that the planning board did some time ago. This was the last lot in that subdivision to develop. And we did a pre-submission on this about a year ago, maybe 16 months ago. This was one where the applicant had to go this LI-40 zone. And you can see we established a buffer here. It's not an aquifer, but we did a buffer because I believe it's residentially zoned down here. This was one that after the subdivision was done, the applicant went to the building department to get permits, and at the time of the subdivision, we didn't really identify what a rear yard would be and what a side yard would be, and the building department came up with an interpretation that rendered the property difficult to build out. So they ultimately had to go to the zoning board, which they did. The application is for, what is the square footage here? A 6,000 square foot special trade contractor building, parking on the side, parking in the front, similar to the design in the other lots. And of course, the buffer would be maintained. There seems to be some old structure that was in this buffer. It was in there at the time of the subdivision, so it's shown to be removed. And ultimately, if we need to revegetate, we'll do that as part of the application. But I did the first part, which was a environmental assessment form. I know that you've raised the issue about cumulative impacts along the road there, right? And about, trucks, which is, and I think we've sort of tried to discuss that with, engineering. But, as it relates to this project, it's hard to know exactly, because a lot of special train contractors don't generate a lot of,
Right.
traffic, other than
Yeah.
perhaps truck traffic coming in and out of the site, depending on the nature of the use.
I know that industrial park well. It might be the nicest industrial park on Long Island.
They did a
It's-
really good job on this
That
one.
was great.
But we did a short environmental assessment form here. There's not really many issues as it pertains to this. We got the buffer from the subdivision. We're gonna get a good design out of it, even if the architecture here right now isn't perfect. It's gonna go to the ARB, and we're going to probably get some changes. But really, there were no significant environmental impacts as a result of this use. So I was first going to recommend a negative declaration for the project.
Do a negative, we'll do it in separate resolutions.
Separate resolution.
Okay, do we have a motion for a neg deck on 917 West Main?
Motion.
Motion by Craig,
Second.
second by George, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions? 5 yes. Now we're going back to our
Back to number 3.
number 3.
And that's, now we would have to deem the application
Complete.
complete. And I believe I'm scheduling the hearing for June 22nd.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate,
Second.
second by George, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed, abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent.
I have number 8,
Number 8, let's go.
the Charles Totaro Revocable Trust. This was one, corner of Oak Drive North and Mill Road in Noyak. This was actually just a lot line change. At the time, I did a little color drawing. Purple, blue showed the existing. They basically were splitting it down the middle to create 2 equal-sized lots. It didn't require any variances. It doesn't require any, the existing structures, and the shape makes more sense given the zoning. But of course, they're still working on the health department. So they've asked for an extension. I'm doing this one retroactively because with staff leaving and everything, projects get taken over. So in this case, I was going to do two 98-day extensions, and they submitted for it and they paid for it. Then I would go from February 21st, 2023 to August 20th, 2023.
Okay, so that's for both of them. One resolution for
One
both.
resolution for both.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate
Second.
and second by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yes. You still have, how about Chicken Briar Hill?
Briar
Is that
Hill,
where
this
we
wasn't in your packet, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks.
We have one in Eastport.
Yes, this was also Jackie's, for which this board adopted a pre-application report, and then I took it over when it came in with the final application. This is for a 4-lot subdivision, properties on North Bay Avenue in Eastport. It's the 3.845 acres, and like I said, in the R20. The applicant submitted the application for a final subdivision approval. This was one, let me just go here. Had sort of a complicated review because of some, draining and flooding issues. I should show on the aerial. There is some open space down here and there's some across the street. At the time, and that open space, by the way, as it relates to this property, when you're looking at it this way, is down here. The planning board asked for an open space basically down through the center of this property to cover the concrete sluiceway that is already located on the property. Sort of a strange shape of open space, but really that came out of the engineering review and design for this application. At the time, the planning board recommended a 20-foot buffer along this property line here, which is shown. The open space in here, they identified the steeper slopes. One of the things is, and I'll go through when I do my resolution, you'll see that there's some engineering stuff in there that's already been addressed and the condition is satisfied. So I'll go through when we go through the resolution. But they're showing a common driveway for lots 1 and 2, then a second common driveway for lots 3 and 4, and then lot 5 is the open space parcel, which is to be dedicated to the town. We had deemed it complete. We had a final hearing, and so I have a resolution
Okay.
like one for myself. I have it. I got it. No, I gave it to them. So if you look at the first page, I have my findings on there. The first one talks about this health department approval, which was issued. The second is about the pre-app report. The project's in substantial agreement with the report. It's actually a type 2 action under secrets and no further environmental review is required. This is consistent with the planning board's recommended for reduced density open space standard plan. It's not a cluster plan because the lots conform to zoning. So it's still an open space plan, but not a cluster plan.
Right.
We got the 20-foot naturally vegetated buffer along the northerly property boundary here. Planning board notes there's a small driveway encroachment on the easterly property boundary of lot 3. There is a neighbor's property, a very small corner of it comes into the corner here. We're noting it, and I'll defer to the attorneys, putting in a condition that says take it out, let it revegetate. To be quite honest, I don't know what the neighbor will say. Could there be some legal dispute that happens as a result of that? So I'm not sure how we
It's not part of the open space or anything.
No, it is in what's the naturally, like I said, buffer, but a very, very small portion of it.
Yeah.
I think we note it, and it's really sort of
Private party.
private party,
Yeah.
is my opinion. But,
Issue, yeah.
so that's number 6 on there. Number 7, the open space is to be dedicated to the town. Number 8 talks about the common driveway utility easements that will serve lots 1 and 2, and then a second one for lots 3 and 4. The town engineer actually approved the common driveway and drainage plans on October 20th of 2022. and although it's in here, and I'll get to it, the SWIP plan was actually also submitted and approved. So, as you'll see when we go through this a little bit, the issues that it pertains to slopes and drainage and all the rest of it have been addressed through the approval of those documents. So I just wanted to be clear. We had a public hearing, and we did get one letter from a neighbor who wanted to make sure that this buffer was being imposed, and it is. So again, on page 2, we got the comments from the engineer. Again, they talk about the Speedy's general permit, the SWIP, which all of which has been done. Number 3 is the drainage requirement, which we've incorporated actually all that language into our own covenants. Number 4 is recommending basically a notice covenant and an indemnification covenant that lots 2, 3, and 4 subject to, or may be subject to flooding. Talks about fees which have already been paid, and as I said, the SWIP which he has reviewed and approved. On the bottom of the page there, Office of Fire Prevention, which goes on to page 4. There's no requirements for any additional firefighting protection devices. Conservation Board came in with some comments. They would like to see slope easements and drainage easements and maybe even some subdivision designs. These are sort of consistent with their previous review. But I think at this stage of the game, I think we got the map largely where the planning board wanted it, notwithstanding some of these concerns. And the other side of it is we did eliminate some additional clearing and some issues by doing common driveways, and these will be subject to the new IA systems anyway. The Conservation Board's recommending clearing restrictions. In this area, I don't know that it's necessary. It's not in the APOD. And unless we were doing, for some ecological reason, I find it hard to impose APOD restrictions on properties that are not an APOD. So if this board is inclined, we could do it, but, the property is heavily wooded, obviously, but, that was their one recommendation that you guys could discuss.
They also talk about reconfiguring some of the lots.
Yeah, that's pretty standard, but we, like I said, our SWIP and approved SWIP and approved common driveway plans were based on the revised plans per the planning board's pre-application report, which didn't talk about any of these additional changes that the conservation board did. The highway department did notice, raised the same concerns about stormwater runoff and drainage, but again, that was the purpose of the common driveway plans that had been reviewed and approved, with drainage in there, as well as the stormwater pollution prevention plan to ensure that everything's staying on site.
Is the sloping over there so profound that we have this major concern about runoff?
I have been out there. I don't think it was nearly as catastrophic, and I would have been more concerned if, at this stage of the game, the engineer raised more concerns.
Right.
But since he's already approved the SWIP plan, he's already looked at the overall development of this subdivision, has come to the conclusion that the drainage can be contained on site, with the drainage that's called for in the plan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've been through there a number of times. It's, I know it's heavily wooded, but it seems flat.
Yeah, it's not catastrophic. You have to go in there a little bit, to see the changes in the grade.
Anthony?
I
Like I
was,
said,
I was looking at the dates, so just to see if the town engineer's comments took into consideration the Conservation Board, but the town engineer commented first. I wonder if it'd be a good idea just to, circle back on that and say, will you take these into consideration with your final determination on the?
if that's something the board would like me to do, because we're on our action deadline for a conditional approval today, so, so I'll let you make that decision. And then we didn't get any other comments from the other agencies. So then I have a resolution to approve the plan with some changes. Number 1 is the proper notation regarding common driveway and utility easements.
Anthony, circling back
Oh,
to
sure.
the highway comments, we need to have that finding, though, to address, I think you mentioned the common driveway and the SWIP, so we should incorporate something to address that in
Findings, yeah.
our
Okay.
finding right after that.
That works. So the first map, and so you want to put that in the findings, right?
Yes, yeah, just, we've addressed it.
Okay.
Well, it also recommended covenant that they could be subject to flooding as well, right?
You mean the engineer?
The deed notation.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
deed notation, yeah.
Okay, we have that in the approval, so. On page 6, it's postal addresses, remove the proposed structures from the map, you can't file maps like that. Number 2 is the driveway drainage construction. Compliance with the recommendations of the engineering division as may be applicable, I put in there. Because again, the SWIP has been submitted and approved, and the common driveway plan has been submitted and approved. That's why it says the approval of the common driveway and utility plans, but again, I found out after that has been done. Payment of the park fee, $14,944.26. That's for 3 lots. You don't get charged for the 4th lot, to be quite honest. Submission of covenants and restrictions, no further subdivision of any lots. No lot line changes without planning board approval. All utilities underground, servicing all lots. The next one is the language from the town engineer regarding the drainage. The next one's also after that, the indemnification as it relates to lots 2, 3, and 4. Another one, all lots are subject to flooding due to the existing watershed conditions. That was another recommendation that the engineer said. Retention of all stormwater on site during and after construction. The common driveway and utility easements that are shown on the map. And then the construction of the common driveway utility easements for lots 1 and 2 prior to the issuance of a CO. And then the same thing for lots 3 and 4. Submission of the common driveway and utility easement documents. Title certification, mortgage consent, town approval of all legal documents, submission of an offer of dedication to the town for open space and town board approval of same, and then submission of the Mylars and paper prints, and then signature of the map within 62 days of those submission.
Anthony,
Yes,
page
sir.
7,
Yep.
the first 2 bullets.
Yes, sir.
Now, these are covenants. I don't know, Christine, how would we address structure covenant?
Yeah, I need a little
It's sort of an
guidance on this,
advisory,
actually.
it's an advisory notice.
Yeah.
With
I'm not really
respect
sure
to
that-
the flooding,
Yeah, the
We-
first
we-
2 bullets are, is there a
The
covenant
first-
where this
first
property is
two-
indemnifying
Page
the
7,
town?
yeah.
It's the page 7. the
Page
first-
7,
yeah.
the top 2 bullets, these are
we have,
listed covenants.
there's a specific form that they sign, it's an indemnification. This is, it's a routine thing that they've done with these, I've seen these before. And
Okay.
they will sign, like a certification, it's a document that they have and they'll sign that. And
So
then
should that be
these
in the list
notes
of
go on
covenants?
the- What?
Should it be in the list of covenants, or should it be?
No, it's an actual, they'll get an actual document that will sign.
So you say remove that covenant?
Maybe
then?
take that and make it a separate line item,
It's a condition, a submission of the certificate of indemnification.
Perfect.
is what it
certificate of
should be.
indemnification. And what about the second bullet? Is that
And that's a
advisory or?
shown, it's an,
That was sort of like a notice covenant that
I know.
the engineer was recommending. I don't know what you think
I
about
would-
that, Christine.
I would do it as a covenant just to have like an extra, because usually you note it on the survey, but sometimes people don't pick that up, so
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to have it, because in the title.
So it's
you
an
don't pick it up
advisory,
as a
an
CNR.
advisory covenant?
Yeah, I would keep it
Okay.
as a covenant.
Okay, so we'll leave the second bullet as covenant, but the first.
And then change the other one to
top bullet,
submission
yeah.
of the indemnification certificate.
Yeah,
Okay.
everything
And
else is
that's-
boilerplate.
That's submitted to each potential homeowner of the lot, each purchaser of the individual lots?
Well,
That
yeah,
gets submitted to us, so
Recorded on
that
title.
it's
recorded on-
recorded in
on the
part
deed.
of the file, and then the CNR will have that in the title report, so they'll always get that, and then there's supposed to be an additional notification on the actual deeds.
Okay.
It'll say it.
Yeah.
All right.
It,
So-
it,
So
it
it'll-
happens more
it'll-
than you think.
And so at what point does a potential homeowner or property owner
When they get a title
get
report.
notified? Okay.
So
So
it's
then
gonna
they
be
can-
linked to the title, basically, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Right.
it's linked to the title and the deed.
Okay. Because that
And our
could,
file.
that could happen sort of late in the game for a potential homeowner then.
Well, we're gonna make sure the certificate of indemnification for the lots, all of them, is submitted before any signature of the
Yeah.
maps or anything
But that's
like
for
that.
us, that's for us.
That's for us, yeah.
For the
Before
homeowner's
they- yeah.
protection, as is with any covenant, it's done at title.
Hmm.
Before.
So remove the covenant, I don't mean to, beat a dead horse here, but should we remove that covenant, or should we state in there that lots 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are subject to a indemnification?
Well, I think
certificate?
Christine wants a covenant because it's recorded on title, right?
Well, for the second bullet point, but you're talking about the first.
I want a
the
condition that they
first bullet.
submit their
The
certificate.
first bullet.
Well, you want that
I want an
indemnification. That's gonna be a submission.
condition.
As a condition, fine.
Yeah, that's
That's
once they
one
submit
I-
it, they're
that's
done.
for our protection for indemnification
Perfect.
against any potential future claims, and then the rest are to protect the homeowners so that they are knowingly purchasing this with that condition.
I could do that.
So how do we address the Conservation Board comments? Because they're pretty strong at first, saying redo the whole configuration, but then they're saying if you're going to approve it, we would recommend specifically for Lot 3, which is the far
One in the
right
back.
corner
The one
there,
in the back, yeah.
with the steep slopes, that the conservation easement be addressed. So how would we
The,
include that?
Is that new with the final referral?
that's the final referral.
That was the final.
The thing is, the driveway for that property is going to come through the areas of the slopes in question there. And this was the best design that we could get out of this under the circumstances. And actually, this access was changed based on the recommendations that came out of the pre-application report, based on the comments from the engineer previously. You know,
So it's the lesser evil.
it's
Balancing act,
I think it's designed, given the slope conditions,
Was the
as
SWIP
opposed to
done
an
with that?
easement which would prevent you from doing anything in there.
Could you clip the easement and have two on either side to address it partially?
What did the SWIP include when it was permitted?
What do you
Because
mean?
the date
Did the
of,
SWIP take that into I just want to find out what was
Yeah.
already
Well,
approved.
here,
in the
Heather-
SWIP.
yeah,
I have a little more information that might be helpful.
Mhm.
That's okay.
that's great, yeah, I just want to address those comments.
Heather Wright for the applicant for Chicken Briar Hill. So when we received the pre-app report, the comments from Conservation were the same comments that you are seeing right now. And as a result of those comments, we couldn't get our health department approval without engineering approval. And the engineering required at that time the SWIP to be completed so that we could take a look at the impact of the slopes on the property, and the configuration was designed to address any flooding concerns and the sloping, and that's why the open space parcel is located where it is. So we did take a look at the recommendation for reconfiguring the lots, but this was the best design given given the topography here, and then after the SWIP, which engineering reviewed and approved, then we were able to get our health department approval. So this sort of was a long process to get us to where engineering was comfortable with the plan.
Yeah, so I guess you were saying that the engineering comments address the town conservation board when I was looking, so I was like, oh, that makes sense to me if the dates were chronologically linked,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But the conservation board is February 22nd, and then you go back to engineering came before
No,
that.
no,
So
I
just
understand.
wonder
But
if it circled back around and we landed in the same place, that's fine. It's
I
just
see
that
what you're
the
saying.
information that's being presented doesn't make me conclude that.
I
So
understand
does
what-
it make sense to have, yeah.
No, I hear
another
what you're
look?
saying, but what I was trying to point out is that the conservation comments
Yeah.
are the same comments that were in the pre-app report, which engineering did see and then address, which we addressed with engineering through the SWIP. So conservation's comments haven't changed. They haven't changed what their thoughts are on this, but engineering
Yeah.
has seen those comments, is my point.
So the SWIP was
back around.
created after February 22nd.
No, the
It came
SWIP,
back around and landed in the same spot. What you described, did they say
Yeah.
the same thing and it landed in the same spot? Yes.
Okay.
So it's just the same thing, but this time, they already took care of it from when they first made the same comments.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So there was an earlier conservation
Yeah. Yes.
report that said the same
same
thing
exact same
prior
thing.
to the February
Yes.
22nd.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
sorry.
just wanted to do the due diligence to connect
No, you're
the
right,
dots.
and
Thank
another
you.
thing is, because we've, and I've done them on many subdivisions, we do slope easements all the time.
Sure.
We see it. And a lot of times, we're also looking at how the slope is integrated with, the adjacent properties. Is it going to impact the adjacent properties? As you could see from, the aerial here, we're pretty well developed around here. So yes, as she said, circle around came back to the same spot. The other side of it is, Kate, is that this happens a lot during referrals because we'll get, referrals from all sorts of agencies who are not
Sure, yeah.
reviewing each other's stuff, and At times, maybe not so much here, it could become a huge disparity between what agencies are recommending.
We go the
DEC does it a lot too.
Aquifer Protection District, Conservation, preserve all the shrubbery and hedges. Fire Department, go clear all the shrubbery.
Yeah. So-
It's a fire.
I'm on the other
The
end of
fire
it
is
in
like-
my own project, so I understand. So thank you. I just
and-
wanted to
and-
make sure
and-
that
I
understand
those
what you're saying.
pieces click together. Thanks.
And Heather and I did speak about this yesterday, that I anticipated that some of the board would have questions about the slope and all that, so
Thanks.
I appreciate that.
Heather, have you had a chance to review the conditions?
I have, and they're acceptable.
Okay, you picked up the conversation, we're moving some of these covenants to one or two of them out of.
Yes, and just for clarification, Christine, you're talking about the town engineering indemnification form that the owner signs and then gets recorded on the property, is the certification?
Yeah, we do, I have a sheet that I
It's
can
a
use
one-
from another thing, I don't remember who it comes from
It
exactly.
comes from engineering, I think.
Okay, because I've seen them from highways too, or two highways.
I've seen them from highways as well.
Yeah,
So
so-
that's what you're referring
Yes,
to? Okay,
yes.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Heather. Okay, do we have a motion for approval then?
As revised.
Yep, as revised.
I'll move it.
Motion by Craig,
I'll second.
and second by George, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent. And Anthony, are you gonna,
Yeah, let's finish up, was that 17?
17,
Yes,
sure, were you waiting for
motion
Mr.
to
Gaza, or are you gonna plow forward?
What's that?
Were you waiting for Mr. Gaza, or are you gonna plow forward?
He's not here, I told Joe that if the planning board was okay with the resolution, I
Okay.
probably didn't have to say anything.
Pretty straightforward.
Maybe I should rephrase that, I told Joe Gaza that if the board's okay
He was
with
here
it.
last week and his stuff got,
I know.
Yeah, he was in here trying to do walk-ons
He didn't come from Florida
with the
again.
puppy dog eyes, you know. Typical.
12.1.
Is he on Zoom?
Oh, no.
That I doubt.
I guarantee you that. Joe does not do Zoom. Remember when we were in the Zoom?
When we
Back in
said
the
it.
Zoom days, there'd be the shaky camera and his daughter would be there. Dad, look, hit this button, Dad.
63 4-1.3.
Did you have a copy? Yeah.
Did you guys have the resume?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know we've looked at the overall map a bunch of times.
A bunch of times. So here, let me
There
actually.
it is.
Yeah, you're familiar with it,
At
right?
one time, there was plans afoot to do a reconfiguration and merge lots, and I
Yeah,
guess that's
yeah.
not happening.
Yeah. This map goes way back. So this is a development section that the planning board approved, it looks like, 1980. Shows where the road access is coming from. The first lot in question here is this one. You'll see the top portion here was approved as a development section. Road abandonments were done. What's interesting is Joe owns the property down here. So this piece was part of the development section. The road abandonment happens. Well, this piece automatically merges then
Right.
with that piece. But this portion won't be developed, but it does increase the size of the property and then decrease the amount of development right you need ultimately
Right.
to build on it. So, so this is the first property in question. And as you know, I did this before, Joe submits his certificate. Basically, in this one, they're gonna be transferring, and just like the other one we're gonna do, half the development right will be coming from within the school district, and half the development right would be coming from out of the
Right,
school
out of the
district.
district,
And that's basically what all of this resolution says. Last time, it turns out, as you remember, there were about 30 certificates. All my calculations were 100% correct.
Quite an
The only one
ordeal
that was
to track.
incorrect was one of Joe's.
Quite an ordeal to.
It was an ordeal. So I did the same thing here, and I'm recommending approval of the request to build, subject to the redemption of the certificates that I outlined. in the
Now, are we
resolution.
putting any type of protection on the southern portion? I mean, he
Here?
can't, he's got clearing restrictions over.
Which is what I said, he's got clearing restrictions, the development section map doesn't allow this piece, but we could certainly put something in there. I don't.
To use his clearing, since he's got to keep clearing.
The clearing, yeah, the clearing, actually, yeah, he's gonna be limited by the clearing on this piece
Yeah.
of property. The other side of it, he's also got the road review stuff done already, so
Oh,
all
he's
that's
got- okay.
been done. Which he'll need, it becomes less of this board's problem, because you planned for everything, but then it becomes a problem at the time of the building permit, which is where they're asking for the road review information. But Joe has all the certificates in order. I have the originals downstairs, and I was going to recommend approval of this, subject to the redemption of the certificates per the
Okay, we do that by resolution?
Yeah,
For
and I
this
have
lot?
it, yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate. Second by George, all in favor, aye, opposed, abstentions. We have 5 yes. Do you need me to sign those or anything, Anthony?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay,
I'll coordinate, 'cause I have them
Yeah.
downstairs. I gotta make sure, everything's properly filled
yeah,
out.
because I'm around if
Anthony,
you need me to sign.
so just to be clear,
Yeah.
the section that's north of that road, where North Seas, that's where the building and the globe itself will be. The piece below will just become part of the property. will
Because
not-
part of the, it's effectively part of the
It's
property,
merged,
because once he
right.
did that,
Yeah.
road abandonment, it emerges by.
But he's not gonna be building on that second piece.
No,
that's
and
gonna
I
be-
had a very clear discussion when I sat down with Joe. I said, Joe, I want to make sure I understand this because this is the development section. He said this portion can't be built on, it won't be built on.
But it allows him to clear more on the
On the
upper
other
portion.
one, right.
Because it's,
Well, yeah, you're gonna have a percentage based on the overall size of the
Exactly,
property,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
But the larger your property gets, the percentage goes down,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, I
But-
mean,
But
he did it
ultimately, it's a
obviously.
bigger square footage
Yeah.
you can
Yeah,
clear.
yeah, yeah. But it will all be limited to the building envelope on here.
so where was the second lot, item 18, the second
Oh,
lot?
I will get that for you right now, hold on.
That's in the same map, right?
Yes, actually, I think it's this one over here. Let me just make sure, hold on. Three dash 4 dash 12.1. Oh, it's still 12. Yep, it's this one over here. And again, I have a resolution here. It's the same exact thing, just with new certificate numbers and new
Now,
calculations.
this one's just a single, the lot though, right? He's
That's
not
right, and
merging.
this one requires more
More.
Oh, okay.
development rights because it's smaller. And
There were no
that's-
road abandonments?
No,
No.
nope. I don't have it here, but we have the road plan that was approved. And as I said, Joe has all his plans approved and in order. And this one's also, like I said, gonna require more development rights, and which is all spelled out in the resolution.
We don't have
there's-
to delve into the,
They're down to, and
Yeah.
I'll say this just anecdotally, because it's not really important, but as you know, Joe is still gonna have something left over one of these certificates. There's gonna
Yeah.
be .0034, and he's gonna get a new certificate at the
he's
end
gonna
of this. So-
change, it's like getting change in the Delta.
But you can see they're coming in handy,
Yes.
in clearing situations
Yeah.
and all the rest of
Abandon
it.
these roads, you get a little bit of,
Yeah, for sure.
every little bit helps.
So these references to baby certificates, that baby development certificates,
Yeah.
that's the new
That's the new
generation
generation,
of
yeah.
certificate?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a resolution for item 18?
Yep, and I got it.
Motion?
Motion.
Motion by George.
Second.
Second by Craig, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent. And if you get those to me between sessions, I'll sign them.
No problem.
Anthony. I'll probably be coming
Then-
and hounding you.
I think my last one is number. I missed it.
19.
Oh, 19.
19? Okay.
This is one, you remember this, I'll show you, 48
You saw this.
Woodland Farm Road. Oh, so this was one that we had a discussion on. We had a pretty lengthy discussion on this. This was one where
Oh, yeah.
the applicant's looking to do a tennis court back here, required some additional clearing and then some revegetation up in the area here. At the time, they came in with a proposal to do some TDR, and the planning board wasn't inclined to do the TDRs. So then they came in with a revegetation plan, and that's when we had a lengthy discussion, if you recall, about retaining walls, staying in, coming out. Here's the ultimate where the board came down on this, is, they said put in, we discussed potentially putting in a tennis court over here. And that's where the issues of the retaining walls and everything came in. And then they came in with the engineer's report saying removing these retaining walls, it's gonna cause us to have to clear outside of them and regrade and cause potential issues as it relates to the structural integrity of the site. So as you can see, this whole thing is walled in. So in exchange, the planning board said, okay, if you're gonna put the tennis court back here, you agree that you would allow the revegetation to occur in here. It's roughly 5,000 square feet. It's not a huge area. And let the retaining wall stay. But constructing the tennis court, then he said, how do you get to the tennis court to construct it? So the applicant, they actually did come in with, I'll just show it to the board. Mary's design. A lot of work into this. So they had showed in the yellow here, from the point of the driveway, where they would get access to the tennis court, okay? And then they're showing that that area on a revegetation plan would be revegetated as part of this application. And then they show you, you know, the area where they're revegetating, including the access there. There was one portion of that retaining wall, was it the one in the middle, was that coming out, or was that staying?
It's staying.
It's staying, okay, I wasn't sure. But that's what the board, you know,
Oh, I'm sorry, in the veg area, yes, the area around.
if you go there.
Lisa Poyer, Twin Forks Permits, on behalf of the applicant. There's a small little retaining wall in the walled area. It's kind of a half curve there. That is coming out.
Okay. So
It's,
that
it's a
is
short
coming
little
out.
wall,
That's
and we have
coming
no problems taking that portion out.
Yeah, so that's coming out.
And you're gonna re-veg that whole area?
Yeah.
It's not the entire area.
It's not the entire area.
There's a small strip right up against the driveway that will remain unvegetated as far as revegetation is concerned. So 5,000 is like 80% of that area,
So 80% of that area? gonna be-
approximate.
Yeah, so there is larger than what's required for revegetation.
So what is the net gain or loss? when-
We're, believe it or not, they have, what is it, maybe 30 to 40 square feet to spare, actually. So they're gonna be less than what they're allowed.
30 to 40 square feet?
Yeah, they're right. These always come right in on the money, Craig. Rarely if someone's allowed 25%, that they come in with 15%.
Yeah, yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're going to still be, they're clearing a little bit more than they have to. I mean, revegetating a little bit more than they have to. So I actually did do a resolution, which I don't know if it made it to the agenda, but let me just say, because you guys had changed some of the conditions recently. Condition on all work to be inspected for compliance with the approved revegetation plan prior to the issuance of a CO. 4 final as-built surveys must be submitted to the planning division showing that the revegetation complies with the calculations. And that the site disturbance is valid for a period of 1 year, and then they could get an extension request by the planning board for 6 months, subject to a $300 fee. You guys did that because we found ourselves coming back and redoing these things 2 years later, so. So those are the conditions for this one.
Okay. I think we're good to go, Lisa?
Sure.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by George. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I think I'm done, but Janice told me she's not here today. I think she might have a maintenance bond or something, so I'm gonna find out and maybe come
Okay.
back up here.
You can always, as soon as it's ready to go, bring it back up.
Yeah, I'll,
And Jeff is ready. Jeff, are you ready to roll, or?
Kate, you want?
Oh, why not break? Thank you.
Come on,
That's great.
Let's
Don't
jump
make us
to,
look bad.
item
Hey,
number
Jeff.
6.
Are you gonna start
Item
us
number
off at
4.
item 4? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
This is 656, 664 Montauk Highway. They were actually already before the board regarding pre-submission application for construction of a 3,000 square foot, 2-story mixed-use building. They did, we set the pre-submission conference or public hearing. We had the public hearing, but it looks like the ad that we had in the paper had an error on the hamlet. The hamlet was listed as Hampton Bays as opposed to East Quogue. So we're reintroducing this and rescheduling them for another public hearing, which will be for June 8th. Yes, June 8th.
June
June 8th. The last public hearing, there were no public comments, but concerning that there was an error in the ad, we want to make sure that anyone that did miss it gets the opportunity to voice any opinion or comments regarding the project itself. So So we're setting the date for June 8th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Again, for the site plan special exception application for 656, 664 Montauk Highway.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Kate and second by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yes. And
So-
are you doing number 7 Cypress? No, that's Claire.
Yeah, that for the first time is not me.
How about
So-
Van Tassel? Is that
Yes,
next one?
number
Yeah.
11. So let's discuss
Number 11.
this pre-application report.
Thank you.
Property is located at 143 South Road in West Hampton. Just pull up the standard plan for you as well. All right. The pre-application report for Van Tassel Dean is for a proposed 2-lot subdivision. The subject property is located in the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, also located within the high priority water quality area. The subject lot is in total 60,031 square feet. The existing nature of the property includes a single-family dwelling, 1 story with a cabana, an attached wood deck, and 2 stone driveways. All the structures that currently exist do not have a CO. Historically speaking, it looks like a pre-existing CO application was requested and applied for, as well as requisite permits for the detached cabana and wood deck, but have since not been completed or gone through the process of inspection and whatnot. So the property still currently exists without any COs. The site's topography is predominantly flat, and there are no natural depressions that exist on the property. And obviously, the surrounding area is primarily residential properties. And to the west, to the east, actually, which I'll make a change on there, is the Beaver Dam Creek. This is listed as a type 2 action. No further environmental reviews required. However, the property, being that it's located in New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area, a Phase 1A or B archaeological report will be required. This is not within the town's aquifer overlay district, so there are no clearing restrictions associated with the property. We did hold a public hearing April 13th, 2023. We did receive 1 public comment. We did close the public hearing with a 10-day written comment period where we did not receive any public comments. During the public hearing, the 1 comment that was voiced was the concerns regarding excessive subdividing within the town, a general comment, not necessarily specific to this project. The constituent voiced her opinion regarding us, quote unquote, chopping things up, and where does it stop, was the specific quote. We received comments back from fire prevention. Those comments are their usual comments for subdivisions. Nothing that specifically stood out. We also received comments back from the West Hampton Beach Fire District. Also had no comment regarding and no objection to the proposed project. Landmarks as well, concerned that the property had a structure that was going for a pre-existing CO, deemed that the structure itself had no historical value, is not requesting any additional information. Engineering is requesting and recommending 5-foot wide utility easements on the east side of the property. They also recommend that the wood fence that encumbers on the south side and the east side of the property be removed prior to final signature. The 3-inch drainage for all future impervious surfaces and monuments shall be located on each corner. The Conservation Board, which had more comments specific to the project itself, is requesting that the applicant include in their final map conservation easements along the easterly line of both proposed lots 1 and 2, and also another 20-foot conservation easements on proposed lot 2, which is the flag lot, along their westerly side, to allow also court-required driveway, but that would be essentially the only structure that would be permitted within that conservation easement. As you can see, it's not necessarily on this map, as is a recommendation by the Conservation Board. They do add that the easement itself is in place or being recommended primarily because Lot 1 and Lot 2 have mature Norway maples through the area, which I'll show you now. Lot 2 of the proposed subdivision is fairly wooded, if not completely wooded. And there's some natural vegetation that the Conservation Board would like us to maintain as part of it. And considering that this is not in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, generally speaking, this lot itself is permitted to clear 100% of it. No comment from the CAC Board, Suffolk County Health Department, and the Trails Advisory Board. So no trail opportunities here as well. So a couple things I wanted to touch on. The application itself does not currently meet our zoning requirement for lot area. Both proposed lots are under the required 40,000 square feet required under R40 zoning district. The applicant is also before the zoning board. So this report will serve as additional guidance to the zoning board as they review their application with them. So my recommendations read as such. Prior to the submission of the final subdivision application, we're requesting that all structures receive a building permit and then obviously requisite CO certificate of compliance as may be needed by the building department. The pre-application report, once again, will serve as comments for guidance for the Zoning Board of Appeals. The standard plan itself is subject to our 40 zoning dimensional regulations, and again, I list out lot 1, which is proposing 30,274 square feet, where 40,000 is generally required, and lot 2, 29,757 square feet, where again, 40,000 square feet is generally required for lot area. The final map, with consideration to the conservation comment. The final map with consideration to the Conservation Board's comments, I am requesting that a 20-foot wide conservation easement be put on the westerly side of the property, the easterly side of both lots 1 and 2, as well as a 20-foot wide conservation easement along the westerly side of lot 2, which is the proposed flag lot. The applicant also shall contact New York State DEC see if the subdivision is impacted by any possible presence of or threatened by endangered species on site or within the vicinity of the subject property. Again, this property is located fairly close to Beaver Dam, which is a tributary for, I believe, I forget what it's called, the Cove, Apatock Cove, I believe, that runs to the southeast. And again, I list off compliance with the fire prevention comments as well as the town engineer comments and Suffolk County Health Department approval upon final application. And recommending that we move forward to the final application stage once we receive ZBA approval, of course, for a lot area, and that the final map includes all the requested recommendations as part of this pre-application report.
Jeff, since this is going to be our advisory report to the ZBA, let's go back to number 2 in your recommendations. I think it would be appropriate to alert the ZBA, and this is all fresh in our minds, that the applicant has the option of transferring a development right to gain their, if the ZBA starts granting area variances without this requirement, it kind of put a kibosh on the whole Pine Barrens Development Rights Program.
Sure.
So we might just want to incorporate that language in item 2,
Okay.
since, just with the second sentence, the zoning board shall strongly encourage to require the transfer of a development right within the West Hampton School District.
Okay, I'll include that.
Just roll that into the language in item 2.
Definitely.
The only other thing is item 4, the conservation easement, we typically refer to them as non-disturbance buffers because
Okay.
they're handled by covenants. Easement it's much more, involved process with the town board and everything else. Non-disturbance buffers.
The conservation board is asking for a non-decision easement or a buffer over the both east and west sides of lot 2. Is that going over the flag lot coming into?
Correct.
So they're allowed to build a driveway through the
So, yeah,
easement / non-disturbance buffer?
Right, so the buffer would have language that would allow for a driveway and limit it to only a driveway. So really up to the board. If the board can eliminate, considering that we're already preserving and implementing a buffer, a 20-foot wide buffer on the easterly side.
Yeah, I think a buffer on the.
On the driveway.
Might be
flag
really
lot,
on the
I mean,
excessive side.
I can see,
Sure.
Yeah, on the east side it does, but driveway's the west side, right? I was
So
wondering
I'll
about that.
eliminate that.
Jeff, when you get a moment, can you get back to the aerial, please?
Sure.
you can probably do it from the end of the
So you're
flag.
moving
Yeah.
the conservation easement and you're making it
A buffer.
A CNR for a buffer, but you're gonna change the side?
We're just gonna
So-
eliminate the one on the dog leg, on the,
So they're requesting for both sides for Lot 2. The Conservation Board's comments are requesting a buffer on both the flag lot side and also the easterly side.
As long as you-
The easterly side of both lots, but the westerly side of lot
You're
2.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
okay.
I mean,
Those two spots.
It's hard to see, but it seems as though the flag lot, the section of flag lot seems to be fairly disturbed, but it's hard to tell
with
from
Vice
the
Chair?
aerial.
Yeah, I mean, it does
good
abut
for it.
another residential property. The entire property, or the proposed Lot 2, is virtually mostly vegetated. But I think more of the concern its proximity to the tributary area, which is what Beaver Dam Creek, is what they want to make sure that any runoff from the IA system is protected by the buffer itself. Although all this is, for the most part, developed, but an additional level of protection shouldn't hurt.
So we're creating 2 undersized lots,
Yes.
and I'm trying to decipher from the aerial if that's, cohesive with the rest of the development.
So, yeah,
That was their
is-
argument at the public hearing.
right.
That's
It's
why-
subject to ZBA approval, and obviously with the inclusion of any TDRs from West
Development,
Hampton
right, yeah.
School District, yeah.
I couldn't agree more
Yeah.
with Dennis on this.
Yeah, so I'll definitely include that in the report. But from a lot area standpoint, they are comparable to the general area. If you look at the size of the lots, they wouldn't be completely far off, even on Apatuck Point Road. I know this is kind of your neck of the woods, Craig,
Yeah.
so you might be more familiar with me, more than me, but these size lots would be more comparable to these 2 proposed lots. But again, they still have to make their request via the ZBA, and until then, they won't be before us. Yeah.
And that's always a big argument to make at the ZBA, and I mean, it really falls flat, because you're basically perpetuating old zoning.
Yeah.
There are a whole host of reasons why the zoning changed, environmental and
Yep.
and infrastructure and density of the community.
I agree.
To say, oh, well, we got a lot of these other lots around, so let's just,
No, I agree.
but that's the ZBA.
So, I mean, should we say planning board strongly recommends? 'Cause I also
We
agree with that. I
could,
mean,
Kate's recommending augmented language.
Very
We fully support.
No, absolutely.
Very, very strongly.
Sure, absolutely.
recommends, Urges.
Urges the board to.
Jeff,
the-
did you pick this
you know.
application up from the beginning, or did you pick it up from another step?
Yes, from the beginning.
From the beginning. Clearly, these structures don't have C of Os. Should we have picked this up for completeness on pre-app?
No,
No?
We always cite it as an issue at the pre-app stage, which is correct, right? Is that what you're saying?
So we'll deem an application complete even if structures have
Yeah,
no?
because the standards for completion is not like the site to be in conformance.
And sometimes they're trying to legitimize it,
Right.
legalize it, so
Yeah.
that's a condition of, so it's kind
Right.
of circular.
I got you, okay, that makes sense, that makes sense.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you.
what else you got for us?
So we're taking out the easement on the west side then?
Correct.
Yeah, we're gonna take out the easement on the west side,
Easement or
yep. And we're
non-decision
gonna
buffer.
augment that language in item
Make it a little bit
2,
more on the stronger side.
on to the stronger side.
As I mentioned earlier, it's in a high priority water quality area, so we're requesting that any construction on proposed lot 1 and 2 utilize the IA system. But yeah, that would conclude my recommendations.
Can I ask one?
Is the applicant here or anyone? No. No further comments?
Comment or
So
question?
this is pre-application.
Yeah, just a
Okay,
pre-application.
good. Do we have a motion?
No, then, sorry.
Tom
Tom
has
Tom
a
has
question.
time.
What I hope's a quick question.
Sure, sure.
I noticed the town engineer's recommending removing of the fence
Correct.
on the south and east side. Just curious, is that, why is that an
I'm not
issue?
sure, honestly. The south and east side,
It's not,
it doesn't really impact, there is a private road there. Outside of that, there's really no impacts, nor were there any additional comments regarding it. One thing I could tell you, that it doesn't have a CO either. And that might be one of the reasons why he wants it to be removed.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're just adopting the pre-app report. Do we have a motion to adopt the report?
Motion.
By Craig,
A second?
second by Kate. All in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions, and we have 5 yes. And Jeff, you gonna keep going, or,
Oh, is it for me, Claire?
okay. Claire, you gonna jump in? Are you going in order, or?
Yeah,
Okay. Then we're gonna roll back to,
yeah.
I think we have Cypress, 69 Cypress, number 7.
Yeah, that's an extension of 1 year for the pre-app reports.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate, second by George, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 yes. And number 9, the day camp,
Yeah, we can go to that one.
okay, going to item 9.
This is just to recap, a month ago, you had granted a year extension on the site plan, but you wanted an update of what they're going forward, because there was some discussion about possibly some modifications to a fence that's was on the
Right.
east side. You're ready, right, to speak on it? So the applicant's representative is here. He's got some additional plans for you, and he can identify you for the record.
What's your name, sir?
Oh, we got the mics on the table now.
Oh, good
Yeah.
afternoon, Wayne Bruin of Save More Sense in Bruin for the applicant. What I'm passing out, I did only get earlier today.
Is that what you emailed earlier?
I emailed it to Claire and Christine earlier, so she could forward it if you want as an email. But it includes a report from VHB, and these are plans from Jeff Butler, where I've highlighted some changes and will identify those. And I apologize for not being able to have large sets, but he did email me the 2 details that are highlighted on those small sets of plans, and that's the other item that I'm submitting. If I can sit here.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So as Claire indicated, a couple meetings back, you did grant a 1-year extension, but you wanted us to give you an update. And so after that meeting, we went back specifically to look at the record and find out how there was a little confusion over one particular element shown on the plans that got stamped approved. And that had to do with a fence along the northerly property line that would be on top of a berm. The other issue that came up was the actual material of that fence. So just to give you a background, the Planning Board approved on March 12, 2020, this site plan after a lengthy review, environmental impact statement, noise studies, things of that sort. The seeker findings did not require a fence along the northerly property line that the Planning Board adopted in 2018, but 2 years later, during the site plan review, the Planning Board requested that we add a solid stockade fence along the northerly property line, which was incorporated into the plans. And just so you see on the site plan, the green area is the length of the fence. And you'll see that that followed the property line for approximately 400 some feet, and then it veered southwesterly into the property. And that was following the contour lines because that area is more or less a valley that leads down towards a Little Fresh Pond. And there is a common driveway to the properties to the north in that valley. And there's also a pathway from the camp down to the pond in that area as well. So the fence was designed to be at the so-called top of the ridge before the slope, it starts to slope down. And in that same area, while this was being reviewed, you can see the dining hall, and there's sort of an open field behind the dining hall, and that's an activity area. And the town engineer, in his review, wanted to make sure that any runoff from that area would be captured, and asked for 3 drainage pools, which were shown on the plan to be in the north portion of the field. And to assure that the water was captured by those drainage pools, he wanted a slight berm to make sure it didn't spill over and go down the slope. And that berm is what I show in red. It's approximately 120 feet. At the time the Planning Board approved this, the question came up about the fence, and we agreed to put the fence in, and then there was a discussion about putting the fence on top of the berm. And when asked that question, we, in particular myself, indicated to the board that we would be willing to accommodate that if it was allowed. However, subsequent to that, and I think Claire actually put it in her staff report at that point, indicating that that would require a variance because you can't have a fence on a berm, particularly if it exceeds the height of what's allowed. So that wasn't added as a condition of approval, but the review and location of the berm was a condition which was shown on the plans that got stamped. And the red area is the berm. And its maximum height, that was a design height, was 3 feet at the westerly end. Subsequent to that, in accordance with the SWIP, the Rayner Group is part of our SWIP engineers meeting with the town engineer during this, as well as Butler Engineering. They determined that with the grading of the drainage pools, that berm doesn't need to be 3 feet. It could be as low as 1 foot. So we noted that on these plans. The other issue that came up is that subsequent to the approval, our client went and got a building permit and actually installed the fence along the northerly property line. However, the fence was not a wood stockade fence as was specified on the plans. Rather, it was a vinyl white fence. And he did so thinking that it would be more attractive, number one, and it would be able to be better maintained in the long run. And he fully acknowledges that he did so, and it's contrary to the plans. So that was raised by the board at the meetings, a couple of meetings ago. And since then, and that's what you asked us to investigate, a couple issues. One is, and is there anything else that could be associated with sound attenuation? So we did a little investigation and clearly went back to the noise analysis in the EIS and the subsequent reviews which were acknowledged in the staff report just prior to this. And clearly the sound attenuation which was acknowledged was a solid fence. It was clearly appropriate and was additional mitigation to what was already incorporated into the entire plan. And so the plan was for a solid fence. It was going to be a wood stockade fence. And we also had a landscape plan and a host of plantings that would be associated primarily on the inside or the campsite of the fence, because everything on the northerly side is either someone else's property, it's natural, particularly the first 400 feet going in. But when it veered into the property, all that area that you see, that wedge of area stretching anywhere between 0 or where the berm is 40 feet from the property line to the westerly part is about 100 feet from the property line, that's all naturally wooded. Oak trees, primarily oak trees. So we were not to disturb that area. That was the other premise of this entire site plan. If the planners recall, were to minimize disturbance, keep everything as natural as possible, particularly along our boundary lines. So our client installed this vinyl fence, and he prefers to keep it, but we were told that that was not in accordance with the plan. Of course, one option for my client is just to go back and install the wood stockade fence that was specified in the approval. What he he's willing to do is actually keep the vinyl fence, but add the wood stockade fence on the northerly side immediately adjacent. So you would end up with two fences, both 6 foot high. The stockade fence, which will have further noise attenuation characteristics, but also more importantly, which we've heard from our neighbors, and I did reach out to Mr. Silber, who's in the audience, and shared this information with him and listened to his comments. And one of the comments was the aesthetics of the fence, and the expectation by the neighbors was that there was going to be a wood stockade fence, which was clearly, and I attached a copy of the approved landscaping plan, which happened to have a picture of a wood stockade fence. If you look on, that's the last sheet of the package. But that was clearly, that was the expectation, and so our client is willing to actually install that wood stockade fence immediately adjacent, and so aesthetically, the view from the properties to the north would be a wood stockade fence.
So is there room between the vinyl fence and the property line to?
So for the
the
first 400 feet, what we need to do is actually go out and survey it. And our client, if the fence, the vinyl fence is exactly on the property line, he'll move it. He'll move it into our property and put the stockade fence so that stockade fence is on the property line. There will be no encroachment of the fences.
Was there ever discussion of a vinyl fence?
No,
Okay.
no.
Do you think
This is a case where, you know, it happens, you see it, the client just thought he was doing something better. Unfortunately, he didn't ask for your permission ahead of time, and we all apologize. He apologizes for that, but he's paying the price. He has to add, go and, he's willing to do that, but he also doesn't want to necessarily get rid of the fence because he's already paid for it. He has no other use for it. So he'd like to just keep that there and add the other fence.
And it'll augment the sound.
VHB provided an analysis of that will clearly, add and augment the noise attenuation. The other element, which, as you know, this is a work in progress, none of the all of the landscaping hasn't been installed yet. This is something that will continue, the landscaping will continue to be done. And that's why I attached the landscape plan, but you need to know that all the landscaping is not in at this time, and will be, just as, before we get our CO, we have to have all the landscaping completed. We did hear comments, and I'm going to make sure my client is aware that if you recall the tennis court and the basketball court that was along the northerly line, which was this board's recommendation to remove and relocate further south on the property, is to be landscaped. And my understanding that there was activity areas taking place in like last summer that those areas are not activity areas, they're supposed to be landscaped areas, and we'll advise our clients accordingly. So the other issue is the hope is that if the board would accept us placing, essentially allowing the vinyl fence to remain with the stockade fence to be put there, the question comes down to that 120-foot portion of placing the fence on top of the berm. My legal opinion is that we have no practical difficulty to obtain a variance. We are aware of, historically, the zoning board is not in favor of granting variances to allow fences on berms, no matter where they are in town. We understand that your staff report and the board would support that, but we think it might be a futile effort, and it would take about 6 to 9 months to even get before the zoning board to even inquire about that. Our plan would be to, as it was always thought of, is the berming was only, it would be inside the fence, and it's there only to direct, make sure any spillover runoff goes into those pools and not down the slope. So it wasn't there, the berm was minimal, it wasn't there for noise attenuation, it was never planned or studied to be for noise attenuation.
Wayne, the berm's on the property line or inside?
No, the berm, again, if you look at the plan, is only in that area that's red. And in the property line, that's where it veers into the property line. The berm, the easterly portion of the berm is about 43 feet from the property line, and then the northerly section, or the westerly section is about 100 feet from the property line. Property line goes straight this way, so this veers
So
southwest.
you have room to run a fence line either in front of or behind the berm?
So the cross-section, I mean, there is a cross-section on page 3 that's highlighted, would show you, a very
So it's the berm, the
rudimentary.
plastic fence, and then the stockade.
Correct.
So the vinyl fence is right behind the berm right now.
And then this is the existing
Correct.
vinyl.
Well, berm isn't in yet.
Oh, okay.
Was the objection, you think, to the vinyl fence, mostly because it was a white vinyl fence?
What I heard from the neighbors, particularly the aesthetics of the white vinyl fence, is that this is more of a natural setting, and that the white vinyl fence is intrusive to that setting visually, and that the wood stockade fence that everyone had an expectation would go in would blend more naturally and be less visible.
More portions of that white vinyl fencing in disrepair?
Not really in disrepair, but I've heard from the neighbors that sections have fallen in some places during times. So here having, that clearly that needs to be supported, but here having another fence next to it with its own post and everything else will certainly help support that. But otherwise, the vinyl fence needs very little maintenance at all.
Did you get any feedback from the neighbors regarding
Yes.
this plan? And?
And they're here just so the
They're
board-
here, yes. I have talked to Mr. Silver, and I've talked to him as recent as about 15 minutes ago outside in the hallway, and explained everything I was going to explain to the board today.
Dennis, would you like to ask for the neighbors' opinions?
What's that?
Should we ask for the neighbors' opinions?
We can't.
Yeah, we can do that.
This isn't a public hearing.
So we're not
There-
asking for a
Emails.
reapproval or anything. It would be an amendment to allow the vinyl fence to remain, and I think I would want to acknowledge, to get the record clear, that that fence does not have to be, or at least that last portion would have to be on top of the berm.
Well, it can't be on top of it.
Right. Without a variance.
It's something we can't mandate. Claire, have you had a chance to review?
Yeah.
I'm saying that you have.
Yeah, I have.
Think it's a workable solution?
I think it is, it's pretty close to what was approved in essence, and we have the support of the expert of the applicants. related noise, which was one of the concerns
So
related
we'll
to
have two
it.
fences for the noise, but we're not gonna go with the fence on top of the berm.
No,
Yeah.
I do see the point. We don't usually do that.
Yeah.
There was the first time I've ever done that. But it was March 12th and the world was ending, so.
Right, yeah, right. March
Um,
12th, holy mackerel.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
And 2 weeks later.
that's my excuse anyways.
Oh, okay. We'll take
Well,
that.
distracted.
When we went out there with the chairman and we did our walk around, there seemed that there was some miscommunication or misunderstanding about whether you folks were gonna apply for that variance way back when and try to get it on top of the berm or not. You know, there must have been some understanding, because it sounded like there was some expectation that you were gonna go through that effort. You know, I wasn't around at that time, and just kind of relaying some of the sense I got, I don't know.
I think it was left as an option, but in hindsight, I don't think, you know, the discussion happened pretty rapidly.
Right.
And I think Claire offered that at the last minute. We didn't really have an analysis. My response during that discussion was, is if we were permitted to do it, you know, and I was trying to bring an analogy that if, in a commercial setting, if you were in a highway business zone, you're allowed a fence up to 10 feet. So you have a little more leeway on the planning board side. However, this being, even though it's a commercial use, so to speak, or non-residential use, it's in a residential zone, so the code doesn't allow that. And then when the applicant actually went and got the building permit for the fence, he tried to do that with, and indicated it was going to be on the berm, and the building inspector was emphatic that that could not be allowed.
And there was nothing explicit in whatever the board decided on that day. It said,
There was no-
you'll go upon,
No.
by,
So we really can't, from a legal and technical standpoint, I mean, we can't really, if there's something non-conforming, we can't say, well, we'll approve this non-conformity, go get a
Go
variance.
ZBA, yeah.
When you could put those, some like shrubbery or something on top of it.
Well, like I said, there's landscape, well, we could do it on top of a berm, but we are planning landscaping in the area of that berm, but the landscaping hasn't been fully completed yet. And there is an approved landscape plan.
Yeah.
I did have questions by Mr. Silver as whether or not additional landscaping could
Yeah.
take place, and I'd
You
have
could-
to
you could
discuss
put
that
some
with
sh-
my client,
You
you
could
know.
put some shrubs on top of
But the berm is gonna be like 1 foot, and it's inside the fence.
it. I'm just saying.
So,
but as a
and I think
matter,
it's
you can't do
planned,
it.
I think it's on the landscape plan to be that, or in that vicinity, so we'll have to look at that. But I think the key is, until we actually complete the landscaping, you know, we don't know whether there's a need for anything more. But I did give Mr. Silver some assurance that certainly, if they reached out to us and there's a discussion, we could still have that at that point when the landscaping is completed, number one. Number two is that the areas that were used historically for activities, the old tennis court and the basketball court, are to be fully landscaped and not used as activity areas, and we'll remind our client that that in fact is the case, so that can't be used. And they were the areas that are closest to the properties in the north.
Are they hoping to operate this summer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're continuing with the tennis camp activities that
Okay.
they have, until they get everything fully completed.
Gotcha. So, Claire, our action then is to amend the approved site plan reflecting these changes that we've discussed.
Yeah. So vinyl fence to remain, probably a condition that the stockade fence go to the north of it, between that and the neighbors, right?
Correct.
Well, I think what we heard is if they're gonna survey the
Well,
fence.
but she's correct, is the stockade fence
Yeah,
will be
yeah,
on the
yeah.
northern
On the north
side
side,
of the
yeah,
vinyl
of the vinyl,
fence,
right,
and
right.
it will have to be on our property. So if we survey and find the vinyl fence is on the property line, we'll have to move that so that
Right.
the stockade fence could be
So
installed.
you'll incorporate that into the,
Yep.
it's gonna be subject to verification.
and
Yeah.
it's all the
Your
same
survey.
length as what was originally agreed to, would all basically
I
parallel.
mean,
in the-
Yes.
logistically, it could be problematic if there is a slope on that side and then you're trying to put the stockade, is the white gonna peek out? I mean, how do you address that, like,
We're gonna make sure that.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't wanna see any white.
So how about, No
from the north
visi-
side.
From the north.
Okay, so not to be visibly intrusive on Main
Not to be visible from the north.
Well, what they don't want is the white fence
Peeking out.
Yes.
overlapping.
Over,
Right.
I
exactly.
think that's easy at ground level. I think if you're on the second floor of a house, that may be different.
From ground level.
Okay.
You know, to make vinyl fences of different colors now.
Well, it's interesting
Hindsight's
is, and I want to thank Jackie, who's not here, but she has been forwarding information about sound attenuation, but some of the materials that she was suggesting are actually materials that are typically attached to chain link type fences.
Yeah.
And it is a vinyl type material, but most interestingly, as you can imagine now, that they can make it into any kind of color or you know, I saw pictures of the product where it's all brick
Yeah,
brick wall.
They make a brick
or
Brick look,
signage
or wood,
or anything
Yeah.
else. So but unfortunately, you know, and that was addressed actually by the board back in 2020, but those materials don't make sense hanging on top of the solid fence to start with. It's the solid fence that works, and here now you're gonna have two fences next to each other, so.
So the modification would be the vinyl fence to remain, there'll be no fencing on top of the berm.
Correct.
That's the modification. There'll be a finding about the noise information provided by the applicant. And then there'll be conditions that the approved stockade fence shall be installed to the north of the vinyl, that the vinyl fence should not be visible from the northerly property,
Visible from joining
and the
property.
fee for modification.
And I'll get you actually full set plans.
Yes, please, and then there'll be, successive plans.
Okay, very good. Good to go. Do we have a motion to approve the modification? Motion by Craig, and second by George. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We have 5 yes. Wayne, thank you for
Great. Thank you for
your efforts.
Thanks, Mike.
Fair, are you going to still stay in order?
Yes.
Go to Louise Sanford, item 12.
Yes, this
Is that where we're
one
at?
is a little bit, I think, these, should be good. This should be a simple one. In this case, the applicant has merged 3 properties. This is it's a large piece of parcel that originally this was a parcel that was part of the Sanford subdivision, and then there was 2 other parcels to the south. So they've merged it to create one compound for one single-family residence and the appropriate structures. Normally, that's not something I bring to you, but the health department in this case, because the approval back in 1980 said no modification of the subdivision without planning board approval, they're considering a merger to be a modification. And I see their points legally, but we would say, no, everybody merge your properties, we're good with that, right? So this would be a simple resolution just to say you have acknowledged and no objection to the merger of those 3 parcels for the minor subdivision.
Which happened 40 years ago.
That happened probably,
That happened
probably
what? That happened.
5 years ago, but, but because the health department now looks at, depends on the project, but looks at something, this would be enough for them to then proceed with their health department approval.
Okay.
Okay.
We can acknowledge that. Do we have a motion? Motion by George,
Second.
second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent.
So the case of Louis,
Puccio,
the
item
Puccio.
13?
Yeah, 13, Puccio. This is gonna be an extension, I don't have a staff report yet. The town engineer, they're still not quite there at the town engineer, so I'm asking for a 2-month extension on this, so we can work out the issues prior to.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
July 24th, so.
Motion?
Motion by Kate,
Second.
second by Craig. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent.
My next one is Homeland Towers Landers.
Camouflage as a tree.
Should be enough to put. And here's some site plans.
Share.
the one junkyard.
This is the junkyard on Flanders Road. So, let's go through it just briefly. They're proposing a wireless facility towards the front of the property. About 150 feet is the proposal for the main project with external antennas. It is a property that is a auto salvage or junkyard in the town of Southampton. It does have several residential pieces of property to the west, but to the east and south is county parklands. And so it is at 2055 Flanders Road. It's zone CR 60. It's in the Central Pine Barrens Core Preservation Area. It's 6.7 acres. There was a pre-submission conference date on April 13th. Of this year, and there is two alternatives. One is an alternative for 150-foot monopole, which is a tree, and the other alternative is 170-foot flagpole with internal antennas. And that's shown on the plans. The pre-submission conference was held on April 13th. Comments received represents a civic group, Franca. Opposed to the project, concerned with the height and the fall zone, no drop calls along Flanders Road, but there was no public comments received during the remainder of the comment period, the 30-day written comment period. If it was to proceed, their full site plan, special exception application, special exception petition, the engineering, site plan information, variance from section 336A, only one use permitted per lot in a residential area zones, EAF Part 1 long form, and visual assessments. The zoning code, so I go through the zoning code, which is an extensive part. I just kind of want to summarize. Basically, it doesn't meet the setbacks to the east. They're proposing 27 feet. You would have to do at least 100%, which is 150 feet setback. That would be from these property lines. This property line, it would be more significant. It's 300%, and from the house itself, it would be 300%. So those are the most significant variances. Those 300% is to approve these projects away from residential uses. We don't want to put them right on top of it. Another thing is that this is an avoidance area. This is located in the Central Pine Barrens Core Preservation Area. It's near open space. It is by scenic corridor. This is portion of 24 is a scenic corridor as identified in the 1999 comprehensive plan. I'm just going through it generally. I don't want to give you the exact codes because there's a lot there. But so there's in the bottom page 3, there's general requirements for you to factor and when considering this. One is the height, the proposed transmission support structure. 2 is the proximity to residential structures and residential district boundaries, the nature of the uses on the adjacent or nearby properties, and that no existing alternative support structure can accommodate the applicant's proposed structure. Here I did want to mention, and I put it in my comments, is that about a mile to the west is the Flanders Fire District cell tower, which was approved around 2000. It's a 200-foot structure located on that piece of property. And as far as I know, all 5 carriers are on it. So that's just a point of information. So I may include that under this section about proximity to the nearest structure, wireless transmission. I touch on landscaping, and then I touch on the setbacks. And then the bottom page 4 is the 200 feet or 300% from a designated area. And this is regarding the residents, where about a 247-foot setback is proposed, where a 450-foot setback is required. But all the setbacks from the additional residential structures that are adjacent should be shown, because I don't think they meet the other residential structures that are to the west. So on top of page 5, this again is about the setback to nearest residential units. And then other zoning variances is the number of uses on the property, whether it's considered a primary or secondary use. It's been determined differently in every circumstances. And then 5 starts to go through the general special exception standards, where it's compliance to general parts of the code. And B is the interference with reasonable use of adjacent residential properties. D is the use, the site particularly suitable for such a use. Again, the reduced setbacks from the adjacent property lines. And then J is the buffer yards. Other zoning issues, you can see that is a CO for a junkyard. I think I'm pulling the site plan on this. It was received relief in 1997 related to the junkyard use. And I think it's to construct the building, and then the planning board at the time had site plan standards on this. I believe all the junkyard activity was to be behind the fence, so I'm pulling that site plan to see, because it's over the years, I think it's kind of crept into that buffer zone there. So we just want to make sure compliance with that, and that would be part of a secret issue. Other environmental issues is related to the core preservation area. This would constitute probably development within the core preservation area. It would have to be obviously referred and approved by Pine Barrens. So do you want to go through the issues?
Sure.
Okay. And the issues would be, project would be an unlisted action, and then you'd have to do determination prior to deeming the application complete. I'm citing some issues related to its compliance with the wireless master plan that may have a significant impact on the environment, and the visual impact of the structures as potential environmental issue. 2 would be the Central Pine Barrens issue. 3 is the waiver for several sections of the wireless code. 4, the single-family residences are avoidance areas. 5, the applicant should consider an alternative location. 6 is the existence of the 200-foot structure to the west at the Flanders Fire Department. 7 is the number of uses per lot. 8 is the uses, the properties improved with a junkyard. 9 is the exterior antenna. So there's the other 2 alternatives. Well, there's 3 proposals. The exterior antenna will be highly visible from the nearby roadways and adjacent public lands. The proximity of the proposed to public road makes it possible that the structure will be visually obtrusive. The tree design, the design of a wireless support structure as a tree is not in keeping with the type of natural vegetation in the area and represents a height 3 times the average height of native trees. This does not meet the standard of stealth design. 11 is the flagpole interior antennas. The interior antennas are a preferred design with the structure. However, the proposed height of 170 of the structure is anticipated to be a visual impact to the adjacent area. Public hearing will be required and the referrals be made. So I just state here at the end the conclusions. The planning board finds no significant issues with compliance of the project due to the site's location. Minor changes to the project do not appear to overcome these issues. However, if the applicant chooses to proceed, a full environmental review, site plan, special exception application, and public hearing will be required.
Did the applicant provide us with a needs analysis?
Not yet, that will be a requirement in the site plan, but,
Right.
I mean, the applicant is here if you want to speak.
Good afternoon, Robert Gaudioso with the law firm of Snyder & Snyder on behalf of the applicant. No, we did not provide that as of yet, but obviously that's the purpose of the application, is that there is a need. We're aware of the 2 sites that bookend the existing sites of the fire department and the police department, east and west on Flanders Road. Unfortunately, they don't provide coverage in the middle, particularly in the main roadway, Flanders Road, but also the surrounding parkland. If you go to the west, heavily residential. If you go to the east, heavily parkland. So we were trying to find a balance of a location that would be separated from the dense residential area, but on a lot that actually we could lease, because we're unable to lease parkland because it's parkland. So we'll show as part of our application when we proceed, number 1, why there's a need, why those existing sites don't cover this area for coverage and capacity. And number 2, how we're somewhat boxed in between the core preservation area, the parkland and the residential uses to the west. So that'll all be part of our application.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
have the separation issue also to the residential structure, which is a significant hurdle. I don't know how you're going to address that.
Well, I think we're well aware of all the code provisions, and we do understand that there are some hurdles there that, that's our burden. We have to show you the what and the why. There is overarching federal law, which basically says that these types of facilities cannot be prohibited as long as we show that need. And our concern is that we have to go through the process and show why this is the least intrusive, why we're the furthest from the residences that we can get. So for example, on one side of the property, we're only 27 feet from the property line.
Right.
But that's next to parkland, and I understand the arguments there. But if we were to go further from that property line to the east, then we'd be going further to the west, which would bring us closer to the residences. So it's a bit of a catch-22. And
Or a lower tower.
so that'll certainly be part of our analysis as well. We're certainly going to look at lowering the tower to the minimum height necessary, while keeping in mind, as Claire mentioned, the other sites, you want co-location. The code requires co-location. You don't want multiple towers or a proliferation of towers. So you want to have enough height that you can co-locate the carriers. And we've worked with you in the past on the Watermill site, and we understand the concerns. We'll look at the different designs. We'll try and come up with the minimum height and the best design possible, and that's what we'll come back with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a copy of the...
I do. I have the draft. Thank you.
So Claire, very, very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Great job.
Got one or two of these before.
And so our only action then
It'd be
today is
adopt
just
the
to
pre-
adopt the conference report.
Yep.
Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate, second by George, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 yes. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a nice holiday.
Thank you.
Claire, are we ready to go with Lewis Road?
We are.
Road improvement plan, I guess?
Yeah, in this case, okay, good. I was starting to write this up and I realized that I had town engineer approval on the road plan, but I don't have, the highway department approval on it yet. We could do it as a condition, but maybe it's better to have the highway department and any changes he might have incorporated into the plan. So I might hold off on that one if you're inclined. I don't know if the applicant, what the applicant wants to do.
Wayne, do you have any thoughts on this?
We're okay either way the board wants to go. Certainly, having the highway superintendent's input would be very helpful. I know this was something, on Spinney Road that the board more or less asked for, and we just want to make sure he's comfortable when we actually are out there doing work.
Lewis
putting-
Road. Lewis Road.
Lewis Road, that's right. Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get a double check on the.
Is this for the turn lane? Is
Yes,
that
the
where
turn
the
lane,
turn
which
Exactly.
your consultants approved, town engineer came back and approved it, and then I'm like writing it up, and I'm like, oh, highway department hasn't responded. So
Yeah.
let me get that response and
Okay.
incorporate it in one resolution. if
It's not
that's-
that time
Yeah,
sensitive.
what we
Yeah.
did is, we prepared the actual plans. That's what you would be looking at now and approving. And it's been reviewed by the town engineer and your consultant and everything else. And the only person I think we haven't heard from in writing is the superintendent of highways.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll work on that, and if everything's good, we'll put it out for the next available meeting.
And I'm
so.
sure you'll address it, but one of the questions I had was the timing of this. You do it now, you do it when the whole, when the project's half done, so I'm sure you'll address that.
Yeah, and that actually, you had as a condition that should be clear when we approve the construction management plan on the project. So
Right.
that is all tied in together. Yeah. Okay, good. So that portion, do you want to come back? So the one thing I did get, I think we just forwarded this to you, but we did get feedback from Petrovic related to the groundwater management plan. So I do have a copy of that. If you just want to look at it, again, if you're comfortable, we can do something. If you want some time, we can look at it. I just gave it to the applicants like half an hour ago, so they just got it.
Have you had a chance to review it, Wayne?
Of course, I studied it on my way here. We've actually, through time, this has been, the whole groundwater monitoring has been, we've been working with Marty Petrovic since this project started. So we're aware of his general concerns and comments. Our client, our consultants, literally, like Claire said, only got this formal report in the last hour or so. So we'd ask an opportunity to look at it, just like you should all look at it. We saw a couple elements. There's one in there about the timing of different things, including the baseline testing before construction, which didn't occur because we didn't get the wells in.
Yeah.
That was that whole thing, getting the wells in before, and it didn't happen. But, there are things that could easily be
Okay.
addressed. But
Okay, good. So I think that is just informational, and we'll have this back, both issues back before the board, if everybody's comfortable.
Okay,
yes.
great. So no action on the Lewis
No.
Road for today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good holiday.
You too. Are we going to Watermill Square, Claire?
Yes, we
Item
are.
16?
Russell Blues here from the applicants, and I'm going to give you a copy of the site plan to take a look at. This would be for, there's an existing restaurant there, and you approved back in 2017, 16 seats in the common area. They'd like to go up to about 53 seats for the restaurants. Normally that could be administrative, but once it goes over 1/3 the interior space, I bump it to you just to double check and make sure that it doesn't get excessive and that makes sense for a site plan, so.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Well, yes.
Number 16.
Just state your name.
Page 6.
Russell
Very
Blues.
bottom, just got the page 6.
I'm pretty sure, Claire, that this, in 17 they gave another 16, right? There's 16 under the canopy and 16 in the court.
There was a couple approvals.
Right.
Yeah, you were.
Now, I just want to.
Yeah,
Well,
and did you
no.
identify yourself?
Yeah.
Yes, he did, yep.
Okay.
Got it.
This is the site plan. So, take a peek at it.
Got a couple to share.
There's a couple here.
That's fine.
There's 5 of them.
Yes, and I will share.
Everyone gets their own. So the only caveat is I like to get the fire marshal's approval before we do an approval for this. That would be up to you. Of course, everybody wants an approval for outdoor seating on Memorial Day weekend. I did do a referral to him, to the fire marshal, I should say, but we could leave it as a condition if you're inclined to grant the approval in this case. I had them give the information about where the neighboring doors were, so it wasn't interfering with the operation of the other businesses in that courtyard area, so.
And this is all, not all going to be covered, is it?
No, the only covered area is that 16 seats under the existing, which has already been approved.
Oh, okay.
Can I just make another thing?
Of course.
Just so you know, I mean, the fire marshal has seen this, and during COVID, we had 60 seats approved in that area.
Oh,
Okay, good, so this should be not,
Right.
Okay.
I don't
Not
want,
new to
we're not
them.
really breaking any new
Yeah.
ground. That's-
no new ground. Okay, so we can go ahead and.
and authorize a conditional on fire marshal granting approval for the actual
Conditional
location
fire
of
marshal.
the additional seats.
Great, that
Okay,
seems reasonable. Do we
perfect.
have a motion?
Do you have something written or you're just gonna?
No, it's,
That's gonna be on.
whereas there's been a site plan for this, we have a request for this, and we're gonna approve 53 seats as shown on the plan that you have in front of you.
Subject to fire marshal.
Subject to fire marshal.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Craig, second by George, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Nothing like making a motion.
Five
I
yes.
have a walk-on. This is for canal
Thank you.
properties,
You too.
boathouses for landscaping associated with phase 2.
Which site is
You
it?
said walk
It's
on,
a walk-on.
Yeah.
It's for the canal properties on the east side of the canal,
Okay,
which is the boathouses. And they are completed phase 2, and we're proposing maintenance bonds for that landscaping in the amount of $42,698.
okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Kate,
Second?
second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 5 yes, 2 absent.
And then I think my only other one was Baidoui, number 21,
By the way, yep.
and that is off the agenda.
That's administrative.
That's a signature, and then it was, it's off the agenda.
Oh, by the way, is acknowledged for signature.
Yeah, and it's off the agenda.
Okay, and it's off.
Yes, it is. I think we're good.
Yeah, thanks. Folks, before we adjourn, just like to set up a mechanism. I know we had some confusion with quorum this week. I know a couple of people out. Typically, in the past, we've used our secretary, Kristen, to funnel, when we're going to be out. I thought that might be good to reinstitute that. Jackie's in favor of it, and so with your indulgence, I think if we know we're gonna, at certain days, we're gonna be out, just feed them to Kristen, then we can always check with her, make sure, and then that would prompt an alert, like, whoa, we got too many people out this 1 week, to advise us, right? So, great, thanks, Kristen. Is everyone in tonight? I'm
Oh, and
here.
I think the only thing is, I think CVS has requested the application be open, the hearing be opened and adjourned to July 13th. if
Oh,
that's
okay.
acceptable to the board.
Was the noticing?
No,
glitch?
no, they're gonna open it, and if obviously there's public, they can speak, but they want to have the substance of their proposal done on
So
July 13th.
we're just gonna open it, take public comment, no presentation? and then-
Yes,
Okay.
they'll be present, and then if you have any questions, they'll be present,
But we
but
will
they
take
don't.
public-
Yeah,
we'll
they're
take
not gonna.
public comment.
Yeah, if there's public there, obviously.
Good.
There could be not be, so. just wanna
Okay.
So
let
there'll
you
be
know.
then 2 opportunities for the public to weigh in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. But the substance with the presentation will happen on the 13th.
Good, okay.
And that'll be, I guess, renoticed for people?
It has to be posted, but the renoticing, because we are just opening and adjourning,
Right,
you just post the property then in that case.
okay.
Because it's a continuation of the hearing, yeah.
And of course, the people that come tonight will hear that
And they can speak if
And come
they
back
have
and-
made the effort to come.
and speak tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, very good. We have a motion to adjourn. Motion. By Craig, second by George. We're adjourned. We'll see you at 6 PM, hopefully.